Hi, Carter and Leia. It's story time with Wela. Today we're reading a really cool story called Chrysanthemum. It's by an author named Kevin Henkes, and he's written lots and lots of really cool books, and all of his books have little mice as the characters. As a matter of fact, one of your daddy's favorite stories when he was little was a book by Kevin Henkes called Owen, about a little mouse in his blanket. So this book, Chrysanthemum, the illustrations were done by Kevin Henkes also, so that means that he wrote the story and he drew the pictures. So let's read Chrysanthemum. The day she was born was the happiest day in her parents' lives. "She's perfect," said her mother. "Absolutely," said her father. And she was. She was absolutely perfect. Look at little baby Chrysanthemum. "Her name must be everything she is," said her mother. "Her name must be absolutely perfect," said her father. And it was. Chrysanthemum. Her parents named her Chrysanthemum. Look at that. And look, see these yellow flowers on her blanket? Those are chrysanthemums. Chrysanthemum grew and grew and grew. And when she was old enough to appreciate it, Chrysanthemum loved her name. Look at all these cool things that she gets to do. She loved the way it sounded when her mother woke her up. She loved the way it sounded when her father called her for dinner. And she loved the way it sounded when she whispered it to herself in the bathroom mirror. Whisper it with me. Chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum. Look at that. Chrysanthemum loved the way her name looked when it was written with ink on an envelope. She loved the way it looked when it was written with icing on her birthday cake. And she loved the way it looked when she wrote it herself with her fat orange crayon. Say it with me. Chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum. Chrysanthemum thought her name was absolutely perfect. And then she started school. On the first day, Chrysanthemum wore her sunniest dress and her brightest smile, and she ran all the way to school. "Hooray!" said Chrysanthemum. "School!" Look at her face. She looks like she's excited, like she's super happy. What else do you see in the picture? Do you see the butterflies? And the flowers, and the cloud in the sky, and the trees? Kevin Henkes is a really good drawer. But when Miss Chudd took roll call, everyone giggled upon hearing Chrysanthemum's name. Look at this. There's Miss Chudd. There's Dawn and Eve. Luis, Al. Can't read this one backwards. Les, Tay, Max, Sue, Bill, Pat, Tom, Sam, Ken, Joe, Rita, Victoria, and Chrysanthemum. Look at that. That looks different. Everybody else's name fit onto the picture, but not Chrysanthemum's. Her name was really long. "It's so long," said Joe. "It scarcely fits on your name tag," said Rita, pointing. "I'm named after my grandmother," said Victoria. "You're named after a flower." Chrysanthemum wilted. She did not think her name was absolutely perfect. She thought it was absolutely dreadful. Wow, that Victoria is not being very nice. She said that you're named after a flower like that's a bad thing, but it's not. Being named after a flower is awesome. Do you guys know someone else that's named after a flower? Who? That's right, Cataleya is a type of flower. It's an orchid that grows in Colombia. Cataleya. A beautiful beautiful flower for a beautiful girl. The rest of the day was not much better. During nap time, Victoria raised her hand and informed Miss Chudd that Chrysanthemum's name was spelled with 13 letters. That's exactly half as many letters as there are in the entire alphabet, Victoria explained. Thank you for sharing this with us, Victoria, said Mrs. Chudd. Now put your head down. Victoria is not being very nice. If I had a name like yours, I'd change it, Victoria said as the students lined up to go home. I wish I could, thought Chrysanthemum miserably. That Victoria, she's not being very kind or being a very good friend. Welcome home, said her mother. Welcome home, said father. School is no place for me, said Chrysanthemum. My name is too long. It scarcely fits on my name tag, and I'm named after a flower. Oh, pish posh, said her mother. Your name is beautiful and precious and priceless and fascinating and winsome, said her father. It's everything you are, said her mother. Absolutely perfect, said her father. Look at how sad she is. She's crying. Chrysanthemum felt much better after her favorite dinner, macaroni and cheese, with ketchup, and an evening filled with hugs and kisses and parcheesi. Look, that's a board game. They're playing games. You guys like playing games with your mommy and daddy too. All right, like Candyland. That night, Chrysanthemum dreamed that her name was Jane. It was an extremely pleasant dream. The next morning, Chrysanthemum wore her most comfortable jumper. She walked to school as slowly as she could. She dragged her feet in the dirt. Chrysanthemum, 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 she wrote. She even looks like a flower, said Victoria as Chrysanthemum entered the playground. Let's pick her, said Rita, pointing. Let's smell her, said Joe. Chrysanthemum wilted. Wilted means that she kind of just like shrunk down a little bit and didn't stand as tall. She did not think her name was absolutely perfect. She thought it was absolutely dreadful. Now Victoria has the other girls being mean to her too. The rest of the day was not much better. During nap time, Victoria raised her hand and said, a chrysanthemum is a flower. It lives in a garden with worms and other dirty things. Thank you for sharing that with us, Victoria, said Mrs. Chudd. Now put your head down. You know, this Miss Chudd teacher isn't doing a very good job of making sure that people are kind. I just cannot believe your name, Victoria said as the students lined up to go home. Neither can I, thought Chrysanthemum miserably. Chrysanthemum looked so sad. Welcome home, said Mother. Welcome home, said Father. School is no place for me, said Chrysanthemum. They said I even look like a flower. They pretended to pick me and smell me. Oh, pish, said her mother. Pish-posh, they're just jealous. And envious and begrudging and discontented and jaundiced, said her father. Who wouldn't be jealous of a name like yours, said her mother. After all, it's absolutely perfect, said her father. Oh, Chrysanthemum looks like she's about to cry. Oh, don't worry, Chrysanthemum. What can we do to cheer her up? Yeah? That night, Chrysanthemum dreamed that she really was a chrysanthemum. She sprouted leaves and petals, and Victoria picked her and plucked the leaves and petals one by one until there was nothing left but a scrawny stem. It was the worst nightmare of Chrysanthemum's life. Look at that. She's dreaming that she's a flower and that Victoria picked her and is pulling all of her petals off. Chrysanthemum wore her outfit with 7 pockets the next morning. She loaded the pockets with her most prized possessions and her good luck charms. Chrysanthemum took the longest route possible to school. She stopped and stared at every flower. Chrysanthemum, say the name with me. Chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum. The flowers seemed to be saying to her. That morning, the students were introduced to Mrs. Twinkle. the music teacher. Her voice was like something out of a dream, as was everything else about her. The students were speechless. They thought Mrs. Twinkle was an indescribable wonder, and they went out of their way to make a nice impression. Look at that. Everybody loves Mrs. Twinkle. Mrs. Twinkle is their favorite. Mrs. Twinkle led the students in scales. Then she assigned roles for the class musicale. Victoria was chosen as the dainty fairy queen. Rita was chosen as the spiffy butterfly princess. Jo was chosen as the all-important pixie messenger. And Chrysanthemum was chosen as a daisy. Daisy's another type of flower. How do you think Chrysanthemum feels? Let's see. Chrysanthemum's a daisy. Chrysanthemum's a daisy. Jo, Rita, and Victoria chanted, thinking it was wildly funny. Chrysanthemum wilted. She did not think her name was absolutely perfect. She thought it was absolutely dreadful. What's so humorous? Asked Mrs. Twinkle. So look, they're teasing her. They're being so mean. And now Mrs. Twinkle, she's being a good teacher, and she's putting a stop to it. What's so humorous? Asked Mrs. Twinkle. Chrysanthemum was the answer. Her name is so long, said Jo. It scarcely fits on her name tag, said Rita, pointing. I'm named after my grandmother, said Victoria. She's named after a flower. They're being super mean. Let's see what Mrs. Twinkle does. My name is long, said Mrs. Twinkle. It is, said Jo. My name would scarcely fit on a name tag, said Mrs. Twinkle. It would, said Rita, pointing. And, said Mrs. Twinkle, I'm named after a flower, too. You are, said Victoria. Yes, said Mrs. Twinkle. My name is Delphinium. Delphinium Twinkle. And if my baby is a girl, I'm considering Chrysanthemum as a name. I think it's absolutely perfect. Chrysanthemum could scarcely believe her ears. She blushed. She beamed. She bloomed. Say her name with me, you guys. Nice and loud. Chrysanthemum! 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 Look at how happy she is now. Jo, Rita, and Victoria looked at Chrysanthemum longingly. Call me Marigold, said Jo. I'm Carnation, said Rita, pointing. My name is Lily of the Valley, said Victoria. Now they all want flower names. They can't all be as cool as Chrysanthemum and Cataleya. Chrysanthemum did not think her name was absolutely perfect. She knew it. The end. See you guys next time on Storytime with Wela.